MLS. That's what I am. That's the title. That's what it is. You're a foodie and you're a nerd. You never know to stay possible. You realize this, right? I couldn't put my finger in. I would always just say, yeah, I'm kind of just
Is how many buyer prospects are you working with right now?
I'm an immigration Jennifer, and I'm working with 3 buyer prospects.
Okay. Which one? Robin.
I'm Robin Hayes. I'm working with 2. I'm not working with him
Right now. Right. That makes sense.
Well, and I'm working with one couple.
Okay. Paul Lambert. We need your name, Paul, and we need yes.
How many buyer prospects?
I'm sorry.
How many buyer prospects?
At least 4.
Outstanding. All right, good. We could be asking how many sellers. Okay. Okay, so John Wilson's team number 1 is the top team so far, and he's got 348 prospect calls. So he's just so, and the second team place is Team 3, and you got Dan Davis. You're tapping that out. We've got 125 business cards, and we've got 113 prospect cards. And then Team 2, and well, it was Dandale, but he's not coming back anymore. So we got Melanie Jones. She's got 142 business cards. That team is the losing team, right? Yikes! That means that team has to do something really cool for the rest eventually. But we're not done yet. Till the 30th. Okay, so that's 2 more Tuesdays? 2 more Tuesdays. Okay, Melanie's not here to help us. Okay. Running late, Melanie. Okay. All right. Do we have any success stories? Please, anybody? Yes, ma'am. Always do. Again, and the buyers that I told you about last week that liked the first house that I showed them put in an offer, and turns out I needed to do some information because before we got to the agreement, there was another offer. How long has the house been on the market? And so, write a letter. She wrote a letter about her family and why they got that house in particular. And we done it. So, yeah. How many offers were? As far as I know. Yeah, that's multiple. Yeah. Yeah. But one time I was doing an offer, somebody would call me back and say, well, it's a multiple offer situation. And I didn't know that. So this is going to help me out so that this is like, because this is what I'm looking for. And, that was the attitude that I got back. So I was like, oh, okay, thank you. That's right. That's right. I often tell people that work with me, eventually, I mean, for example, I think of my old friend Kevin Hennigan. It turned out that Kevin, some of you may Kevin, I don't know, but eventually Kevin knew more than most licensees. Kevin said, well, I don't know if can do this. No, like, Kevin, you know more than most people do. Because if you're in the trenches every single day, 9 days a week, you're going to learn things. That's congratulations. I'm glad that was helpful. And do you think the letter made the difference?
No, I think
Sometimes that's more important to a seller than even the bottom line.
I know my buyer said, well, as I'm writing this letter, I'm checking them on Facebook to see what their interests are and to see what would get to them. Are they a type of personality or are they a very homey kind of, down to earth person? Just like the letter tells you. Right?
Be careful even whatever you put on Facebook. Yeah, I know several years or 1 or 2 years ago at the Jack White party, somebody took a picture of me with a glass of wine, and I drink wine every day practically. But and then my lovely team, not me, put it on Facebook. I said, get that off Facebook. I mean, it's not a sin to drink a glass of wine, but why put that on Facebook? You don't need that kind of stuff on Facebook, and people do check Facebook now. Even for Anchorage Community Theater, of which I am a board member and have been for many, many, many years, when we hire a managing director for theater, we check their Facebook page. And we have hired, out of, let's say, 20 applicants for that kind of a job, we probably had to reject at least 15 because of something silly on Facebook. Any field problems? Good to see you. Okay, the question of the day was name and how many fire questions
Ron Wilson.
No problems then, guys. We're all.
I know that it's extremely helpful if you don't need it. Always need it.
Wow.
You don't need a deal. You will save yourself a lot.
You negotiate from a position of strength. Yeah. Any you want to elaborate?
Well, today, this KW guy, and I'm not even going to go there, but anyways, he was like on me about a $200 repair. He bought the property as is, and then he was trying to say, because the appraiser came back and said, you need to paint the windowsills and such that, and he was making a big deal. I said, well, the seller's not going to do it. He said it's as is. Yeah, but as is not cash. I said, you know what? He's got 6 properties on the market right now, and I've got 11 pending. So just send us over the termination agreement instead of laughing.
Yes.
You want to hear his text? I'll read his text to you. Let's do it. Yeah. Okay. I've got a handyman that can take a look at the windowsills on 47th today at 2 p.m. Am I clear to meet him there at time?
I love it. Good job. Good job. It reminds me of a great story I have many, many years ago when I was selling real estate in Houston, Texas. And I met with some, let's see, let me get this right. They were sellers. They were seller clients. And I interviewed, of course, for the listing. I did a market analysis, interviewed for the listing. And I could tell from day one that this seller client was going to sooner or later want me to cut my commission. And I wouldn't cut it at the time of the listing. And so we muddled through and we got along perfectly okay. And then we get a buyer. And we are, and I always knew this guy was going to pull this on me. You have to trust your instincts in this business a lot. And we are now the day before closing. And my seller client comes to me and he says, Kathy, the only way I'm going to go to closing is if you'll cut your commission. I said, you know something? I knew you were going to say that. So here's what you need to understand. I have 11 properties in sale pending today. And the way I function, the way I operate is I always assume one transaction out of all those I have in the pipeline will never close. And sir, if that's yours, I'm perfectly okay with that. Of course, we went to closing. So like Paul says, the best bluff is no bluff. And always never be hungry. If you're hungry in this business, you will give too much away and you may not succeed. People sniff that. They can tell if you're hungry. So anyway, the best bluff is no bluff. That's one of my favorite sayings. To finish the conversation about multiple offers, because we had a request to keep going on this. How many of us, again, have experienced multiple offers, either as a listing realtor or a selling realtor? Okay, so why don't you tell us generally what seems to go sideways with multiple offers and how you either handle it or you wished you'd handled it. Let's start with anyone who's had multiple offers. You already told us your story. Any other stories about multiple offers? And it's important. Well, as Teresa said, the forms are not mandatory. So if you have a selling realtor demanding that you use that form, you don't have to use the form. But I think it's a very good form to use because it dots the I's and crosses the T's. And I know the Barb Huntley team in multiple offer situations has used that frequently. In fact, I think the lenders demanded that. But if you'll look at the form and you're the listing realtor and you've got 2 or 3 offers that have come in the door, I think that form speaks, it covers many bases and it should keep you out of trouble.
When the compound works, when the seller compound works,
Usually what happens is the seller will do one of 2 things. Either the seller will simply take the best offer and reject the other one. Best offer usually is bottom line unless you have a smart guy that writes a beautiful letter. Or the seller will opt for a multiple offer situation where they're asking for highest and best. So there's a seller client who's got 3 offers that come in the door and he wants to look at highest and best. Maybe he doesn't like any of them. Maybe he thinks that if he does highest and best, he can get a better offer out of the 3. Now there's a danger in doing that. We talked about this last week. What's the danger in going back and to a highest and best request? Some licensees and buyers will say, heck no, I'm not going to get involved in a bidding war. This isn't an auction, and so I'm going to walk. So you always have the danger of when you do that your buyer's going to walk. So that really reverts back to buyer control. When's the best time to discuss with buyers the potential that they'll be in a multiple offer situation in our market today? When's the best time? So that you can prepare your buyer for not getting upset that this may happen. So because of the market we're in, 6 days on the market, 3 days on the market, 0 days on the market, because of the market we're in, at the buyer interview, you need to counsel them that they may not have an opportunity to make anything but their best offer the first time. Buyers will say, well, isn't it traditional? Can't we just make a low offer? And if they don't like our offer, they'll counter us back. And you have to be really careful how you counsel your buyers, like we talked about last week. Your uneducated buyer will think that you're just trying to get them to make a better offer, so you'll make a greater commission. And remember, 3% of $400,000 is not a whole lot of money. And you know, if they go there, don't hesitate to let them know that. But you need to counsel them that in this market today, yeah, we certainly could, if you wanted to, make a low offer and see what the seller says. And that's going to be just fine, Mr. Buyer, unless there are 900 other realtors out there who might, more or less, 1 or 2 of them, be also writing an offer on this property. So that helps them understand that maybe they better make the best offer first shot out of the bag. And if they lose that property, one of the important things for me is I don't want to be the reason a client loses a property. And if you don't counsel them, they will blame you. Kathy, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me I had to make the best offer, right away? So never allow yourself to be in a position where you can be blamed for what goes sideways. If they're not successful, it's their fault. Think outside the box to make sure it's their fault. So the buyer interview helps tremendously. The counseling helps tremendously, and you don't want to be the reason they lose a property. And yes, there's always the problem that they could walk, but I submit they're not going to walk in a multiple offer situation if you counsel them correctly. I hear this. Well, my parents told me never pay full price for anything. So my answer to that is, well, that's when you're buying a car, isn't it? Now you're buying a home. This is a quality of life. So that's the trouble a little bit. Paul.
Someone thinking just want to feel like this. They always ask me, what's the best? You really want to help? And then they want to shave off $2,000 and think they're getting a big deal, and I show them in a 30-year payment, it's like, $10.
Yeah.
You're going to leave the house with
Are you suggesting we not be intimidated by these other realtors?
You know what? I know that even if it was $600, a lot of people, and so they need that check. So,
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah. They all put their trousers on the same way. Okay. I had a thought. What was it? Okay. I had a thought. Any other questions, concerns about this problem? Do we prefer this kind of market, or would we rather have a less aggressive market? I think you get a listing, it's gone, but I submit that when you have good listings, your workload is tripled when you get multiple offers. Multiple offers are a lot of work, especially if you do a full counter. Let's say 3 offers come in the door, and rather than doing multiple offer, you counter offer number 1 and see if number 2 and 3 will wait while offer number 1 looks at that counter offer and decides if they want it. And when we do counter offers, we do a full-blown 20-page counter offer. We don't just send back the first page, because there's things in the body of the purchase offer that maybe aren't right either. And if you don't fix that in the counter offer process, and they accept it with some verbiage in there you don't like, for example, maybe the inspection dates are inappropriate. So if you just counter back with a counter offer page and don't address the inspection dates, if you're just worried about the price and you don't deal with the inspection dates, you could create a problem for your transaction later.
There's a whole array of.
So here's a question for you. So your buyer says, I'm going to make a full price offer, and I'm going to ask $5,000 in closing cost assistance. Is that a full price offer, anybody? That's an offer minus $5,000. And you got to tell your buyer that, sir, Mr. Buyer, best friend today, that is not a full price offer. There's nothing wrong with that offer, but that's really not full price. And then I many times show them what the seller's cost to sell are. Your buyer, it never occurs to your buyer that the seller's paying a commission. I had a buyer just the other day in the office say, I never realized what it cost that seller to sell. Now I can understand why maybe they don't want to pay my closing costs, because the seller has the commission and the seller has their own closing costs. So there's the commission between 6 and 10%, correct? Okay. And then what do you think the general percentage is for the seller's closing costs? What's an average percentage? Yeah, if you just work with 2%, you'll be safe. Buyer, I usually, again, and I try to really slightly overquote this, but I tell a buyer that their normal closing costs could run between 3.5% or the other. And if you tell the buyer, I had another buyer ask this question, I said that 2%, don't worry about it. That money stays in your pocket. It just goes to your reserve account. So that's your money. You didn't give it to the lender, but the other 2% are loan origination fees and all of the things that it takes to get a loan. So when I'm working with a seller, if it's a real high-end property, it might be more like 1%. Because if it's 600,000, 2% is a little on the high side. But if you generally work with 2% as your seller's cost, you'll be safe. Sellers say to me, well, in fact, I had a call today. The seller said, well, if I didn't have to pay the commission and I sold it myself, what would my cost to sell be? And I said, about 2%. Doesn't matter. It doesn't take a realtor to create those closing costs for you. So it's not a full price offer if it's full price and -5 or -7. Now the other thing in the counseling session that you have with your seller, I hope you're telling them, your buyer, sorry, I hope you're telling them that many people in today's market are having to make above list offers. They don't want to hear that, but if you don't tell them that, it's never going to happen. Just tell them. Yeah, just add it. Robin and I had a buyer several years ago. We haven't forgotten this buyer yet. I think I mentioned this the other day. When we mentioned that it was a seller's market then as well, and when we mentioned to this he couldn't, we showed him a lot of homes, Robin did.
You say that how come I see this house sitting on the market for months and months? That's short term.
Some people who are I learned this the hard way. It's hard to believe, but there are some people that say they want to buy. They are very qualified to buy. They've got great credit, but they will never buy a home. They just cannot make that decision to buy. I had a couple, I just loved this couple. Young, enthusiastic, sweet, a little kid, and they so wanted to buy, but they couldn't buy. They could not take that leap of faith. I spent a lot of time with them. And it was a learning curve for me to realize that just because people are able to buy doesn't mean that they actually can or will buy. They just can't do that. They'll always be renters. It's sad. They'll always be renters. Okay.
But anyways, I have heard some of yours. Oof. But anyways, I just read a book on body language, and as soon as I read it, the first listing of Plumber went to, I got the listing because I could understand what you're doing. When you said this, our limbic brain never lies. So you can go to somebody and lie to them verbally, but our limbic brain, like if I throw a baseball at you, you do this. That's your limbic brain. It's an automatic thing. When LIMBIC, and yeah, and so when you ask him to make a comment, like this, he was protecting himself. That's exactly what that means. It's awesome. And if you're with a buyer and their foot pointing at the door, they want to get the heck out of there. I mean, it's an awesome book. I really feel that it's
true. Do we think body language is important? Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You have to really, and if you're talking too much, you're going to miss out on all of that, those clues. Yeah, if you're talking too much and not paying attention, you'll miss out on the clues. In fact, I did an open house at a condo that's real hard to do an open house because it's a secure building. And it's a condo we really want to get sold. It's adorable. Not all of my team members like doing an open house there because we don't get much traffic. So I end up doing the open house myself because I can't put a gun to my team members' head and make them do this. But I want you to know, I was determined if anybody walks through that door today, I'm going to make them a buyer client. I don't sell them the condo I'm in. And what do we always do at the property we're in? In fact, I think it's time to do an open house session again if you all want to hear that. But what do we always do at every open house, every single time without fail? And I know Lee knows this. And so she doesn't get Ask them to buy the condo. Ask them to buy the property you're in. It doesn't even matter if they don't like it. Who cares if they don't like it? That's not the point of asking them to buy. You're asking them to buy to make them a little bit uncomfortable so they might laugh or show you some body language, or they're probably going to like you because you had the nerve to ask. They really do. They want to know that you care enough to ask. Thank you. You're right about that. Anyway, so I did this open house and I was totally riveted on turning this open house into something of value. And I ended up getting 3 buyer clients, buyer clients from the open house. And the reason I'm thinking we should do an open house session again is because I had to re-engage myself to remember, first of all, to have a really good attitude about being there, and secondly, to be sure and ask the right questions. Remember the other day in Trenches, little Joan was sitting here and she said one of her concerns was, before she did an open house, her concern was to prep herself to know all about the property so she was ready for the questions the buyers would ask her. And my response to Joan, I don't know if you all heard this. I know Robin, she wasn't here. The response was, Joan, you are better served working on and thinking about the questions you're going to ask the buyer. You're in charge. If you don't ask the buyer buying type questions, you're not going to capture those people. And so I reminded myself to be very aggressive with asking questions. When I say aggressive, I don't mean in their face. I mean body language. I mean wait for the proper timing. When they walk in the door, how long have they been looking for a home? Are they working with a realtor? All of those things. And yes, absolutely. And then the other thing, as you know, is I take notes. I write down what they tell me. If somebody writes down what you tell them, you're going to feel pretty special. So anyway, bottom line, for this little condo that nobody wants to do an open house, that I captured 3 buyer clients. That's exciting. Anyway, back to multiple offers. Any other concerns, questions about multiple offers? In fact, I was thinking about that today. Gabe said something last week that has made me think a little bit harder about escalation clauses. The problem with an escalation clause is you could say, my buyer will meet or beat any other offer by $1,000 up to $400,000. And Gabe said this, and it's something to think about. I love it. I love it. So Gabe said, well, you got to be careful with that because maybe the seller will come back and say, okay, then guess what? I want $400,000 for my property, even though you only offered $395. So therein lies the danger. One of the best words I've developed over all the years in real estate is the word consider. Quote, consider. Not I will, not I won't, but I will consider. So I'm thinking this morning while I was thinking about this class today, I was thinking, you know what? In the escalation clause where we say seller will pay $1,000 over best offer up to a cap of $400,000, maybe we need to add the word consider, such as a buyer will pay up to $1,000 over the best offer and will consider a cap of $400,000. So I think that the word consider would save you. Because if the seller comes back and says, well, I want $400,000, sorry, we're only going to do $395,000. That was our offer. Or we'll pay $396,000 if the next best offer. And yes, when I do that kind of a escalation clause, John, I do request that we see the offer that pushed us to that higher offer. Now, I think Gabe was saying they don't have to provide that, but I've never had a realtor turn me down on that. They've always provided whatever pushed my buyer to pay that $1,000 more. I've always been given a copy of the other offer. And not only do I ask for a copy of the other offer, I want a copy of the 90% letter. I want proof that there was a legitimate offer with a loan originator that said they could indeed have paid that. With the names blacked out, yeah. So I've never been turned down on that. So, John, any more on escalation clauses? We have some verbiage that we like to use. I thought we might have given you that, but if you'd like that, we'll give it to you. Yeah, I think that helps a lot. It takes away that. I've never had another realtor grab that 400,000, but the truth is they could. So anyway, this is a fascinating business in that almost anything you do, there's something you shouldn't have done, or there's a better way to say it. Kelly, do you ever have to deal with multiple offers? I wouldn't think so. By the time you're involved, it's a done deal, isn't it? I'm trying to think. We just recently we just sold a property. In fact, the last 3 we've written offers on, we were potentially in multiple offer situations. In fact, we were in a multiple offer situation, but we submitted an offer on a condo that had been on the market 5 days. And let me think how this worked. When we wrote the offer, there was no offers. By the time we got a response from the other realtor, he said, Kathy, and by the way, I hope before you write an offer, you are talking with a listing realtor. Don't ever write an offer without communicating with the listing realtor. Because I've had offers come in on my listings that were sold the day before. If the realtor had only called me, I would have said, I'm sorry, it's gone. Because we may not have put it in sale pending just yet. Maybe we were missing a signature, but for all intents and purposes, the property was gone. So I hope you're calling the listing realtor, and I ask these kind of questions. You can't be afraid to call. Hi, this is Kathy Fernandez, Jack White Real Estate. Paul, could I talk to you a little bit about your home? Paul, I see it's been on the market for 40 days, and I see the property's been on the market for 40 days. Paul, have you had a lot of showings? And how many offers? I never want to ask the question, have you had? I'm going to dig a little deeper. How many offers? None so far? 40 days on the market in our marketplace is a little unusual, Paul. Is there any particular reason? So, Paul, let me ask you another question. Have you counseled the seller to consider the potential of a buyer asking for closing cost assistance? You have, so your seller is aware that that's. Playing it pretty close to your chest, right? So, Paul, may I ask you another question? Paul, may I ask you? No, click. No, I'm sick of your questions, Kathy. Paul, so it's been on the market for about 40 days. What would be really important to your sellers, Paul, if my client never say you're writing an offer. Never say you're writing an offer. Because if Paul has a buyer in his back pocket and he now realizes you're going to write an offer, what's Paul going to do? Hey, Kathy Fernandez with Jack White, maybe bringing me an offer. Let's get another offer in. Never say you're writing an offer. I will say I'm going to be meeting with some folks this evening, Paul, and we're going to talk about the potential of making an offer on your property, depending about the seller and the seller's motivations. Don't ever give anything away. You are always negotiating at all times. Every conversation in this business is a negotiation. Paul, what's important? Meeting with some folks tonight, and we've identified several. Now, don't lie. It's probably true. We've identified several properties that they may want to put an offer on, Paul. Can you tell us what your seller? He's very motivated. Is it so? What's important? Is it time that's important to him, or money, or what's important to him? He'd like to sell. Okay. And if we were to write an offer, Paul, how much time do you need to give us a response to the offer? 3 days? Does he need 3 days because he's hoping another offer will come in? So Paul's not telling me very much other than the word motivated. So Paul, can I ask you another question? I'm a little fuzzy on something you just said. When you say the seller's motivated, what are you exactly?
I'm getting the extension, at least running off on this stuff.
So he may not really be motivated. You just said he's motivated. Just
Most of my sellers are motivated. Most of the people that I sell, I don't deal with unmotivated people. You know, I try not to anyway. Spend a waste of time. If you don't want to price it at least somewhere near the ballpark, then you don't take it. That's what's stupid when it's on the market for 17 years. That kind of stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. The ones that I've had lately have been pretty motivated. You know, a lot of these people seem to be wanting to get out of the landlord business. And that's how I think in my listing. People from landlords for 25 years and acquired quite a few properties and just stick to doing it. And they're in so much in debt too. A lot of them are so much in debt because trying to get out of all the debt burden now.
sellers are paying.
Yeah, the sellers are just debt.
So this property has been a rental, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, it actually showed pretty good for a rental. Help us know how to write an offer. They're analytical. They have a number of properties. They are bottom line people. Good point. Yeah, good point. Okay, what I learned is we have sellers that have other properties for sale. They are trying to liquidate. It's been a rental. So here's a real important clue. Are they emotionally attached to this property? Not at all. This is a piece of business for them. That money come back to me. It's a very good point. So this is what I would now. The other thing I do, and I didn't do it. I should have done this. Paul, what would you have said if I said, Paul, I've got some buyers sitting in my office.
Sure, no problem.
Good. So let's just fire. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to talk on speakerphone. In fact, there are some realtors we deal with that, oh no, I'll never be on speaker. I like to be on speaker. I want to, if possible, even with my voice, influence that other realtor's buyer. Yeah. Well, let's. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I do that in part because, again, it boils down to believability. If it's a complicated situation, I don't want. I'm not the one responsible for the information or the interpretation of the information. I want everybody that has a vested interest in what's going to happen next to be as educated and knowledgeable as I am. So that when you go a certain direction, and let's say that again the direction you go fails, your buyer made that decision because he had as much information as you did. Now, not every realtor wants to be on a speakerphone or a conference call, but it certainly doesn't bother me. So now my next move is we do, that Paul doesn't have to tell us if he's expecting other offers. I asked him that, and he said no, but he doesn't have to tell us that. In other words, I learned last week that I get a phone call, and we have a listing and sale. We have a short sale that is in a contingent, sale pending contingent situation. I still get calls on this property. This house has a big red C on it in MLS. I still have realtors call me. They can clearly see there's a C there, and they still want to show it. I feel no obligation to say, really, I'll set it up for you, because if they don't know what's there, that it's in contingent, I don't have to tell them that. I used to tell them that as a matter of fact, we'd love to have you show it. However, please know, as a courtesy to you, I want you to know, I don't even do that anymore, because we don't have to do that. But personally, either. But it doesn't. It's not good in this business to lie about even the smallest detail. So I believe he was honest with me. So I say to my buyers who heard that conversation, so Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what kind of offer do you think we should make? Well, Kathy, we don't know. What do you think? That's okay. You can't make decisions for these people. But back on me, I'll say, well, it sounds like we have an analytical buyer who probably only cares about the bottom line. There's no emotional attachment with this property, and we do know he'd really like to liquidate his holdings. So, how badly do you want to buy this house? How would you feel if you made a low offer and another offer came in they'll counter my low offer? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. If another offer comes in that's better than yours, why would they even look at your offer? Why would they bother? So there's always that risk if you don't make the best offer now that you could lose it. And don't you need closing cost assistance? Yes, I do. So even Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if you made a full price offer and you want $5,000 in closing costs, that's not a full price offer. So what kind of offer do you want to make? How badly do you want the house? And today, or the other day when we wrote this offer, my beautiful little buyer said, Kathy, I don't want to lose this property. I didn't know. I don't want to lose this property. And this is what you need to do. And we were going into a multiple offer situation. So he made a very good offer, paid his own closing costs that before somehow he didn't have the money for. Anyway, we prevailed, we got it, but it's that gathering of information and talking with the other realtor that's going to help you write really good offers. I know we strayed a little bit from multiple offer situation, but particularly in the multiple offer market that we're in, this educational process is critical for your buyer. Anyway, back to my story. So we wrote an offer that was a good offer. The other realtor even said, Kathy, thank you. That was a really good offer. The next morning, the realtor says, oh, by the way, we got another offer in today. And I said, he said, but they're giving us until noon tomorrow to consider their offer. So in that window, because your buyer was first, in that window, if your buyer wants to improve his offer, this is the opportunity to do so. Interesting. He didn't have to do that. So I said, well, okay, thank you I appreciate that opportunity, and I was very appreciative of the opportunity. I said, how much better was the other offer? Is anybody going to tell you that generally? No, they're not supposed to. So how much better is the other offer? He said, quite a bit better. 5,000, is that 8,000? Who knows? You just have to almost dig deep in your innards and make a judgment call. But again, I pass that on to this buyer, and I said, I understand that you're even though your offer was really good, you're quite a ways from the other offer. I said to the realtor, did the other buyer ask for closing cost assistance? He said no. So all I can assume is it was a non-closing cost assistance in a full price offer. So I went back. Good news is at the end of the day, we had determined that this listing realtor, who should have known better, actually underpriced this property. So We sat down, we did a market analysis, we knew it would appraise, and at the end of the day, my buyer came in at, do the math on that again. He came in at, was it 8,000 better than the other 8,000 above, 8,000 net above list to the seller, and we got to do it. Number one, because the other realtor gave us the opportunity to do so, and number two, because the buyer had been schooled already at the notion of what closing costs do, and he said, I had no idea it costs, that the seller would have to pay that kind of money. And why would he want to pay your closing costs? He's got his own to pay, plus a commission. So it's that buyer interview that really makes a huge difference. How many people are doing buyer interviews now? Perfect. What do you do in your buyer interview?
I asked them how long they've been looking and what they're doing.
Now, is the interview like at an open house, or is it?
Well, I sometimes go to their home and I do. Oh, no, actually, the buyers is mostly coming in after listening to me a week ago that I should always go to the office, and it is quite helpful. If, they see how busy I am, and they can appreciate more that, if they want to. Sometimes they want to chit chat about the kids and their hockey game and all that stuff, and that's not a proper taking activity talking about their hockey game. Anyways,
It is bonding, though, don't you?
yeah.
Well,
I don't believe in the bonding.
you do want repeat business.
Yes, and I say, thank you for your time, right? Thank you for your time. That's right. I found it to be my friend.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, and I adopt your client.
That's fine.
I adopt the other side. Send them a card. What are you doing? Their attitude towards us is nothing. Sorry.
We launched in the buyer interview.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm just.
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it. John, get him in the office. Remember, the best tool to use is what's out. Walk through the kids.
How long they've been looking at me. I'm very surprised about
in the buyer interview, I bring them in the office. I treat them as if I'm an attorney or I'm a doctor and they're the patient or the client. And we have a yellow pad that we fill out with a name. So when we put it on your paperwork, we got it right. Yeah. Well, think about signing things. Let me have all your contact information. I met you at an open house, so I know that I know what you're looking for, but let's reiterate again what's important to you. I also told them that little MLS page, and that's pretty motivating. So why don't you tell me where on the national properties? And we circle the areas where they, we really want to live on the west side. We'll consider South Anchorage. And so they are already involved in making buying decisions. They're already involved in determining where they want to live. And then I make them sign the map page, by the way. I'll say, a little map page. I'll say, by the way, Real Estate 101, folks, it's against the law for me to tell you where to live. So you're going to show me where we're going to search for homes for you, and I'm going to have you sign this right here, and we're going to put a date on it. And I'm going to keep that in your file so that if I'm ever audited by the government, I can prove that I didn't steer you into any particular subdivision. It helps them understand what you do is really important, and there's a law involved in it, and they got to pick where they want to live. And we're going to do two things today. The fun part is we're going to find homes that meet your parameters. We're going to set you up for a search. And then the second half of our interview is we're going to walk through the paperwork so you know everything there is to know about buying a home. And we'll be authorizing a Alaska Real Estate Commission consumer pamphlet and a buyer representation agreement. Yeah, we highly recommend that you check police records. If you're concerned about that, we highly recommend you check police records. You know it's against the law for us to tell you what neighborhood you maybe should or should not live in. I'm sorry, but we just can't go there. It's against the law. It's against the fair housing law. But we highly encourage you to do your research. So tell us. We can't give it. We can fortunately, my kids are all out of school, so I'm not obligated. But Robin certainly knows the good schools and the bad schools. She works, her other real job is with the school district. So Robin is very helpful there. Yeah, it's never smart in this business to be overly knowledgeable about all kinds of things. For one thing, you never guarantee the square footage. You never guarantee that the vacant land behind the property will never be built on. Just never get yourself caught in those traps. You really have to always think about protecting yourself. So we'll give you a copy of it. The biggest thing about the escalation clause is you got to have a cap on it. But we decided that we like the word consider. The point being that if the cap is $400,000, let's say you make a $395 offer and the cap is $400,000, and your offer ultimately is the best offer, was to prevent the seller from saying, "Hey, if that's your cap, let me have $400 now." So we thought the word consider would help save us there. This buyer only said he would consider it. If you're going to be that way, we'll just go buy another house. We offered you $395. It's obviously the best offer. We were willing to go $400 if we needed to, but we would have considered it. So somewhere work that word, and I like that word. It's a weasel word. Oh, when I list a property, do I talk to the seller about the potential of multiple offer situations?
Well, yes, but get into that situation part there. My question pertains to realtor who wants to go into a multiple offer situation and set a rule that they were going to gauge with the parent for they agreed to set a rule criteria to measure the offer against someone else's.
Just no.
They want their purchase.
Even after he'd submitted a 90%.
Yes.
Yeah. No. The only thing, I think when you take a listing, you don't want to promise your sellers multiple offer situations ever. because I mean, that may never happen. But the two options the seller has, as far as I'm concerned, are with one offer is to accept the offer, reject the offer, or counter the offer. And, Mr. Seller, I never recommend you reject an offer. You could, but I never recommend that. So we've got three offers now on the table, and the question is, seller, here's your options. You can accept the best bottom line offer, or if you'd prefer, we can do a multiple offer situation and go back to all three realtors and ask for highest and best by noon the next day. And that tickles the fancy of most sellers, but again, you have to say, but there's always a risk, because now three realtors know that there's other realtors out there that have written offers, and they all might get annoyed, those buyers, and just walk away. There's always a risk. It's got to be a seller's decision. Most of my sellers just take the best offer. Although recently, with our short sale situation, we did go back to highest and best. And we didn't lose either of those buyers. One buyer was better than the other. But not, I think that's a listing realtor who is dabbling in the potential of losing buyers. There's a fine line between taking care of your client, protecting your client, protecting the transaction, and being so heavy-handed that nobody wants to work with you. Do you think the realtor came up with those list of rules, or the seller? Yeah. Yeah. You know, the truth is, in this business, who almost always gets in the way of a transaction? Almost always the realtor gets in the way of a transaction. Yeah. There's a lot of ego in this business. Yep. We're almost done here. What do we want to talk about next week, if anything? We want to talk about open houses again? I mean, I'm game for that, but I don't want to bore you guys.
Or, the call landless out there.
You know, I will say there's a lot of realtors out there that if they sniff that you're a brand new licensee, they'll be bullies. And that's really unfortunate because, yeah, it's unfortunate because as a more experienced realtor, if I have a baby realtor on the other side, to be honest with you, if I can maybe slightly take advantage of them to the benefit of my client without being unkind. I mean, if they overlook something and it's an advantage to my seller client that issue got overlooked, maybe I'll let that slide. But I think, to be honest with you, those of us who are experienced, we will ultimately, it'll serve us, our business better, and therefore our clients better if we take good care of the other realtors as well. I was nice to you. I'm sure I was nice to you. What he doesn't know is what we got away with. No. I was just something. Oh yeah, the other day I got. Well, who was it? Oh, an offer for. Yeah, we got an. Oh no, it was we put an offer on a property, and the listing realtor is related to his client. But did we see that anywhere in any of his paperwork? Heck no. So I'm the one that wrote up the disclosure of conflict of interest document to protect him. But the truth is, it also protected us at the end of the day. If you end up doing the job of your job and their job, just don't worry about it. Get over it. In some ways, I like it because it's going to be worded the way I like it or go the way I want it to go. Learn anything? Thanks, guys. Thank you. The up's not it's not a split note, but it's a touchy one. You got to call.
I don't want to know
We've got-
anything
yeah,
about a home
but we got-
inspection, so we need to. Oh, okay. Scan it.